Hi guys men. Thank you for watching these videos. Subscribe to the channel to not miss new videos. Throwaway account for obvious reasons. So, I teach high school. Been doing it for over a decade now, and I like to think I'm good at it. The kids trust me, mostly, and I've always made it a point to keep an open door if they need to talk. Never thought that open door would become the entry point for the complete collapse of my marriage. This whole thing started on what I thought was a normal Tuesday. I was finishing up grading some essays during lunch when one of my students, a quiet, kind of awkward senior named Jamie, came up to my desk and handed me a folded note. I thought it was a joke or maybe something he wanted me to read for feedback, so I just smiled and said, "You want me to read it out loud?" He looked horrified. Actually flinched. I remember that part so clearly now, and I hate that I didn't pick up on it then. He shook his head, hard. "No, please. Just read it. Alone." Then he practically ran out of the room. I didn't open it right away. I finished the last two essays. But when I finally did, my whole body went cold. You know that icy feeling when your brain catches up a few seconds after your eyes already know what it saw? The note said, "I'm sorry to get involved. I know this might not be my place, but I've seen your wife a few times. With my dad. At a diner. Once in his truck. They kiss. She's not just his friend. I thought you should know." I reread it 5 times. Sat there in my stupid, cluttered classroom, just staring at it. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't believe it. Not her. Not Sarah. We'd been married 11 years. Together for 13. Sure, things weren't perfect. We'd been snipping at each other more lately, and yeah, she'd been on her phone more, out of the house more, said she was volunteering again. I chalked it up to stress or boredom or the usual married couple midlife crap. Never once did I think cheating. And yet, here I was, holding a note from a kid telling me my wife was having an affair with his father. I didn't eat lunch that day. I didn't teach the last period all that well either. I kept thinking, there has to be some explanation. Some other way this makes sense. I was wrong. I drove home that day with the note still in my jacket pocket, crumpled up like if I folded it hard enough it might not be real anymore. Sarah wasn't home. That wasn't unusual. She said she'd been helping plan some charity event at the community center. Normally I'd get a text like, "Hey, be home late," or "Don't wait for me, love you," but there was nothing. I sat on the couch and stared at the wall for maybe an hour, thinking back on all the little things I'd overlooked. The late nights. The mysterious volunteer work that never actually produced any stories or photos. The new perfume I hadn't bought her. The gym membership she suddenly cared about again after years of saying she didn't have time. The secretive smiles at her phone. You ever go back in your mind and realize all the moments that were red flags, but you ignored them because you trusted someone? That was me. A whole parade of warning signs, and I waved them through like an idiot. I did the thing no one should do but everyone does, I checked her laptop. She never logged out of anything. She used to laugh that I was too boring to snoop, and she was right, I never cared. I trusted her. But that night, I opened her messages. First Facebook. Then email. Then WhatsApp, which I didn't even know she used. There it was. His name, Gary H. Photos. Deleted messages, but not all. A few threads where she hadn't covered her tracks. Flirty texts. Things no friend would say. A picture of them together in his truck. Her hand on his chest. I had to leave the room. I walked out onto our back porch and stood there under the crappy string lights I put up 2 summers ago, trying not to puke. I felt like a fool. Like someone had just told me my whole life was fake, and I'd been clapping for it like an audience member in a bad play. You know what's the worst part? My first thought wasn't even how could she? It was, what the hell do I do now? I went to bed that night without saying a word. She came home around 11:30, humming some tune, smelling like wine and strawberries, kissed me on the cheek and went to shower. I laid there, awake, listening to the water run, wondering how many nights I'd been sleeping next to someone who was lying to my face. And I hadn't even told her I knew yet. The next morning, I got up early. Made coffee. Sat at the kitchen table like I always did, reading the news. Or pretending to. She came down in a bathrobe, smiling, her hair still damp from the shower. "Morning, babe," she said, leaning in to kiss me on the head like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't spent last night with another man. I didn't flinch. Just sipped my coffee and asked, "How was the volunteer event?" She didn't miss a beat. "Oh, it ran late. You know how it is. Bunch of women trying to organize anything? Chaos." I almost laughed. "Chaos," she said. "What a word for it." She was scrolling through her phone like she always did, totally unbothered. That's when I realized something that hit harder than the messages, harder than the photos. She wasn't sorry. Not even a little bit. Because she didn't think I knew. She thought she was smarter than me. So I decided to play dumb a little longer. I texted Jamie, the student. Told him I appreciated the note and I wouldn't say anything about it. I also asked for his dad's full name, just so I could confirm it was the same Gary. He replied within a few minutes. Gary H ***************. Yup. Same guy from the WhatsApp messages. Same guy in the photos. A 46-year-old divorced HVAC tech who I vaguely remembered from some neighborhood BBQs a few years back. He used to talk about his son like he was a troubled kid, and now here that same troubled kid was trying to do the right thing. Meanwhile, the adults were lying through their damn teeth. I called in sick to work that day. Couldn't face the kids. Couldn't face Jamie, especially. I spent the morning pulling together every bit of evidence. Screenshots. Emails. Saved them to a USB. I even emailed a backup to myself in case she found it and tried to delete it. I wasn't going into this blind. Not anymore. And then I did something that probably sounds insane to a lot of people. I made dinner reservations. A nice Italian place we hadn't been to in years. I told her I missed spending time together, that I wanted to reconnect. She looked surprised, almost flattered. "Of course," she said. "That sounds perfect." Perfect. That was the word she used. What she didn't know was this dinner wasn't for reconnecting. It was a setup. I was going to confront her. Calmly. Publicly. Somewhere she couldn't throw a lamp at my head or scream bloody murder. I had the evidence, the facts, the whole ugly picture. She just didn't know the curtain was about to drop. Friday night rolls around. I put on a collared shirt I hadn't worn since our anniversary 2 years ago. She came down in that tight black dress, the one she used to wear just for me. Lipstick perfect. Hair done. She looked stunning. And I hated that it still hit me in the chest. "Damn," I said, managing a smile. "You clean up nice." She grinned, almost girlishly. "You too. I'm glad we're doing this." We drove in mostly silence. She scrolled her phone half the time. Probably texting him, for all I knew. My stomach was in knots, but I stayed calm. Focused. Controlled. We got to the restaurant. Dim lights, white tablecloths, overpriced wine. A couple in their 30s trying to pretend everything was okay. We ordered. She kept talking about this event she was helping with. I let her talk. I even nodded. Then I said, "Do you love him?" She froze. Like a statue. Just blinked. Her wine glass paused halfway to her lips. "What?" "You heard me. Do you love Gary?" That was the moment the act cracked. She set the glass down slowly, her jaw tightening. "Why are you asking that?" I reached into my coat pocket and slid the folded note onto the table. She stared at it like it was a bomb. "Read it," I said. Out loud. Since you love making me feel stupid. She didn't read it. Just looked at me, eyes narrowed. Is this a joke? Nope. That's from your boyfriend's son. One of my students. You've been sneaking around with a guy whose kid trusts me more than his own father. That's how I found out. I could see it, all the lies trying to shuffle into her mouth at once. But she was too shocked to sort them. She opened it. Read it. Then folded it back up like it might disappear. Then she said, "He's just a friend." I actually laughed. Loud enough that the couple next to us turned around. A friend you kiss in his truck? A friend you tell you love on WhatsApp? A friend who sends you half-nude selfies from a motel room? That friend? She rolled her eyes. Rolled. Her eyes. Oh, my God, are you going to be dramatic about this? I was speechless. Dramatic? You've been gaslighting me for months, sleeping with a guy whose son is in my class, and I'm being dramatic? She leaned in, her voice low and icy. If you want to blow up our marriage in public, go ahead. But you're not going to make me the villain just because you're feeling insecure. That was it. Right there. The moment I realized the woman sitting across from me wasn't just a liar, she was a monster. No remorse. No apology. Not even a flicker of guilt. Just manipulation, blame, and icy detachment. I didn't say another word. Just stared at her until the food came. Then I asked the waiter to box mine. We rode home in silence. That night, I slept on the couch. She didn't ask why. She didn't say anything. And I knew what I had to do next. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. She hummed while making coffee, asked if I wanted eggs, and even kissed me on the forehead like it was a Sunday in some sitcom marriage. I stared at her like she was a stranger who'd broken into my house and started pretending to be my wife. This fake domestic bliss made my skin crawl. No thanks, I said, stepping back. I'm meeting someone for breakfast. That got her attention. She turned from the stove, spatula in hand, eyes sharp. Meeting who? I almost smiled. That's how it is with her, she can cheat, lie, sneak around for months, and still have the audacity to act territorial. Narcissism in a silk robe. Lawyer, I said casually. Family attorney. Just want to know what my options are. Her face drained of color. That was the first time in weeks I saw something real from her fear. What? You're not serious. Oh, I'm dead serious, Sarah. Unless you want to sit down and give me every single truth, no spin, no deflection, no gaslighting, I'm done pretending you're someone worth trusting. She slammed the spatula down. Are you really going to throw away our marriage over one mistake? One? I raised my voice. You lied for months. I've got screenshots, messages, timelines. This isn't a slip-up. This is a lifestyle. She started crying then. Not the silent kind, either. The dramatic sobbing with face buried in her hands. The same kind she used when her sister accused her of stealing money years ago, turns out, she had. I didn't mean for it to happen, she sniffled. It just did. I was lonely. You were always working. I didn't feel seen. That I didn't feel seen line was her go-to for everything. Didn't feel seen, so she spent money behind my back. Didn't feel seen, so she started drinking wine every afternoon. Didn't feel seen, so she let some sleazeball with a pickup truck park in our marriage. I stood there while she cried and realized. I didn't love her anymore. And more than that, I didn't like her anymore either. She begged me not to go to the lawyer. Said we could work through it. Said it was just emotional with Gary, that the physical stuff barely happened. Barely happened? I told her I had pictures. She backtracked. Changed the story. First it was barely anything, then it was a few times, and finally she admitted they'd been sleeping together for at least 4 months. I asked, was he the only one? She looked down. Didn't answer. Silence is an answer. That silence? It hit like a shovel to the chest. I wasn't even sure I wanted the answer, but now that I had it, without her saying a damn word, I couldn't unhear it. There was someone else before Gary, wasn't there? Still no words. Just this fake, pitiful look like she was the victim in all this. Like I had driven her to it. That kind of narcissistic self-pity that somehow manages to make your pain about them. So I asked again. How long has this been going on? She whispered it. Like saying it quietly would somehow make it better. Since last year. Last year. So while I was planning a surprise weekend getaway for our anniversary, she was probably sending nudes to some guy in her phone labeled Emily's dentist or whatever pathetic lie she used that time. I felt hollow. Numb. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just sat down on the couch and stared at the floor. She tried sitting next to me. I got up. That shocked her more than anything. I think she expected me to scream or throw something, but instead, I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and said, I want you to leave for a few days. I need space. You're kicking me out of my own home? Yes, I said. Our home. But right now, I don't want to be near you. I don't trust you. And honestly, I don't even want to look at you. She called me cruel. Said I was punishing her for being human. I reminded her that cheating wasn't just being human. It was betrayal. It was lying to my face for a year, maybe longer. Then she hit me with this. If you had just been more affectionate, I wouldn't have needed it somewhere else. That's when I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I'd heard this script before. From stories online. From friends. From therapy clients back when I used to volunteer. Cheaters always rewrite the narrative. They turn I made a choice into you made me do it. I didn't say anything else. Just packed her a bag. Left it by the door. She slammed the bedroom door so hard it shook the picture frames. 30 minutes later, she was gone. I sat on the floor, leaning against the wall, and just shut down. No music. No lights. Just me and the truth. My marriage was a lie. And for the first time in a year, I finally had clarity. So that night, after she left, I pulled the note out again. The one her lover's son had handed me in class. I hadn't read it more than once before, I was too shocked at the time. But now, I studied every word like it was scripture. Mr. F, my dad's been seeing your wife. I found out by accident. I saw texts when I was using his phone to order food. I didn't know what to do. I feel like crap. I'm sorry. You're a good teacher. Please don't tell him it was me. That kid. 14 years old and more of a man than his father ever will be. It broke me again, just sitting there holding that crumpled piece of paper. Not because of the betrayal, by now I'd accepted that part, but because of the chain reaction. This wasn't just between me and my wife. Her lies were bleeding out, staining everything around us. I thought about calling the kid. Or maybe even showing up at their house and confronting Gary myself. But I knew that wouldn't help. That would just scare the boy, make a mess, and maybe even cost me my job. I wasn't going to be that guy. Instead, I started documenting everything. Screenshots of texts. Emails. Bank statements showing weird cash withdrawals. Phone records. I called a buddy of mine who's a divorce attorney and asked if we could meet on Monday. But the strangest part of that night wasn't the silence or the pain. It was the relief. I finally saw the whole truth. No more lying to myself. No more trying to fix things that were broken beyond repair. No more tiptoeing around her moods or waiting for her to snap out of it. And once I saw it for what it was, I started remembering all the small betrayals I'd ignored. The sudden need for privacy on her phone. The way she'd come home smiling after errands but couldn't remember what she bought. The laughter over texts that stopped the second I walked in the room. The way she started calling me by my full name when she was annoyed. Like she was trying to detach herself emotionally. It was all there. I just didn't want to see it. Until a kid handed me the truth. And now, I wasn't afraid anymore. She came back 2 days later. Not with an apology. Not with remorse. With a script. I heard her heels click through the entryway like it was her runway. She walked in holding a tote bag, wearing oversized sunglasses inside the damn house like she was shielding herself from consequences. She sat down on the couch like she still owned the place. "I've been thinking," she said, as if that was some kind of generous gift. "We rushed everything. Maybe we both made mistakes. Maybe we weren't really compatible after all." I just stood there, watching her try to spin the whole thing. She wasn't apologizing, she was narrating. Like we were on a podcast and she wanted to control the edit. I asked, "So now it's a compatibility issue?" She nodded, smug. "Yes. You're very logical. Cold, even. And I'm more emotional. I need spontaneity. Passion. You've always been so restrained." I laughed. "For real this time? You cheated. Lied for months. And now you're telling me this is because I'm too calm?" She shrugged. "You were never really in it, not like I was. You never fought for us." She said that with a straight face. Like I hadn't paid for her grad school, taken care of her when she got that ovarian cyst scare, or skipped my brother's bachelor party because she didn't feel comfortable with strippers being involved. "You don't get to rewrite the story," I said flatly. "You broke this, not me." She scoffed. "You're so dramatic." I told her I'd spoken to a lawyer. That I had documentation. That the house would be split, but I wasn't budging from it. That's when she dropped her bombshell. "I've already talked to someone too," she said, crossing her legs like we were in a poker match. "If you think I'm leaving this house without a fight, you're wrong. And if you want to bring lawyers into this, fine, just know I'll be telling mine you were emotionally abusive." I blinked. Stared at her like she'd just started speaking Latin. "Excuse me?" "You isolated me," she said. "You were always in control. I was scared to even express myself near you." Control? Scared? I never laid a hand on her. Never raised my voice until she admitted to cheating. If anything, I gave her too much space. But here she was, crafting a defense, preemptively poisoning the well. I knew then that she'd been preparing for this for a while. She had a playbook. I was just the idiot who didn't realize we were playing a game. But this time? I wasn't playing anymore. I didn't think it could get worse. I thought I had seen the ugliest parts already, the cheating, the gaslighting, the fake crying, the narcissism. But it turns out, there's always another layer of betrayal when someone's committed to being a terrible human being. It was a Tuesday night. I couldn't sleep, so I grabbed my laptop and started digging through our shared Google Drive looking for anything related to our finances, just in case the divorce got messy. That's when I found it. A folder called Zipper Club. It was hidden under wedding planning stuff, probably something she assumed I'd never look at again. Inside? Screenshots. Group chats. Photos. Videos. It was a group chat between her, two of her girlfriends, and, you guessed it, Gary. They were sending updates. Play-by-play updates. Like it was a sick game. Just told him I'm going to Target. Face with rolling eyes, wish me luck. He bought me a necklace for Valentine's and still doesn't suspect a thing. LOL. Gary says we should rent a cabin again in the spring, smirking face fire. But what hit me hardest? One of the messages from her best friend. A woman who had stood next to her at our wedding. You're literally living a double life, girl. I don't know how you do it. I'd feel so guilty. And my wife replied. Guilt? LMAO. He's boring. This is survival. I had to step away from the computer. I walked to the bathroom and threw up. I wish I was exaggerating, but no, my body physically rejected what I just read. They were laughing at me. Behind my back. 4 months. They turned my loyalty into a joke. My marriage into a group chat punchline. And the worst part? I was still sleeping beside her every night during that time, thinking we were just in a rough patch. Telling myself she was stressed. Busy. Tired. God. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't eat the next day. I just stared at the wall, wondering how I could have been so stupid. But something also changed in me. A switch flipped. Before, I was heartbroken. Now, I was done. By Thursday, I wasn't heartbroken anymore. I was laser-focused. When you stop seeing someone as your wife and start seeing them as a threat to your peace, it's amazing how quickly the fog lifts. I made backup copies of everything, those group chat screenshots, emails, receipts. I organized it all into folders labeled by category: infidelity, financial lies, character evidence. I was building a war chest. And I didn't care if it felt petty, because in court, petty wins. And here's where I'll be honest, I let myself be a little bit vindictive. I canceled the joint credit cards. I rerouted her gym membership payment. She'd find out when her access got denied in front of her little smoothie gang. I removed her from the Spotify family plan. And I may or may not have logged into our shared streaming accounts and renamed the profiles. Hers, liar. Mine, the fool who paid. Guest, Gary Clownface. Petty? Yup. Satisfying? Absolutely. But the real punch came when I sent her the digital folder titled "For Your Lawyer." No message. Just the link. It was cold, precise, and made it clear I wasn't playing anymore. She responded with exactly 3 words. "You're a psycho." No defense. No denial. Just deflection. As always. But I didn't engage. That's what she wanted, for me to rage, to give her some outburst she could twist into proof of emotional abuse. Nope. Instead, I called her mom. Now, her mother and I were never close, but I figured she deserved to know what her daughter had been up to, especially since she had always championed our relationship. I told her everything. She cried. She actually cried. Told me I didn't deserve any of it, and that she was sorry for what her daughter had become. Then she said something that stunned me. This isn't the first time she's done this. Apparently, in college, my wife had cheated on her then-boyfriend with his roommate. Her mom had kept it quiet, hoping she'd grow out of it. Thought I was the one who changed her. Nope. You can't change someone who doesn't want to grow. That night, I slept for 6 hours straight for the first time in weeks. And when I woke up, I started planning my exit, not as a broken man, but as one who was finally walking away from the wreckage. The weekend came, and so did the inevitable confrontation. I had been preparing for this moment, gathering every ounce of calm I could muster. She had no idea what was coming. To her, she was still playing the same game she had been for months, manipulating me into believing it was all a phase, a temporary mess-up. But I wasn't that naive anymore. She came home late on Friday night, as usual, no apology, no acknowledgement of what was happening. She dropped her purse on the counter, giving me that familiar, half-smirk like she expected me to beg for attention. "I need to talk to you," I said, voice even. Her smile faltered just a bit. I could see the shift. She knew I wasn't acting like the same pushover. "About what?" she asked, glancing at her phone. I could tell she was texting Gary. Unbelievable. "About us," I said. "About your affair." She froze. For a moment, I thought she was going to try to deny it again. But instead, she dropped her phone on the kitchen counter with a sigh. "Okay, I know this looks bad," she said, voice dripping with faux sympathy. "But you don't understand what it's been like. I've been lonely. You don't give me what I need, and Gary does. He makes me feel alive. I clenched my fists, trying not to snap. You think Gary makes you feel alive? I said, shaking my head. No. What you want is control. You think you can play with people's lives without consequence. Well, this time? You can't. You've crossed the line, and I'm done. Her face twisted, and she got defensive. Don? You think you're the first person who's ever caught me? No, you're not. You're just the latest one. And that's when I knew. She had no remorse. Not a single ounce. She was convinced she was the victim here. I let out a breath, keeping my voice steady. No, you're the cause. You made this mess. You tore our lives apart for your own selfish needs. She crossed her arms, clearly frustrated that I wasn't playing her game anymore. Fine, what do you want? You want a divorce? Go ahead. But don't think I'm just going to roll over and take this. You'll regret it. I wasn't about to waste another second on her manipulations. You already gave me the answer, I said, standing up. I don't want this life anymore. It's over. And with that, I grabbed my coat and left. I didn't look back. The next few days were a blur of logistics, lawyers, and cold conversations with the people who had been my support system through all of this. I'll be honest, there were moments I thought I might break. I'd catch myself remembering the good times, the laughter, the feeling of knowing I had a partner, only to remind myself what she had done. The betrayal wasn't just the affair, it was the years of manipulation, the constant deflection, the lack of accountability. I filed for divorce. Simple as that. But the paperwork? It felt like I was signing away my life. My entire identity as a husband was getting erased in those little boxes. The hardest part? The waiting. We had agreed to a temporary living arrangement. She could stay in the house until the legal details were sorted out. I didn't want to be petty and kick her out, but man, every time I saw her face, I was reminded of how easily she could look me in the eye and lie. The first couple of weeks were full of awkward silences. Her attitude shifted. She wasn't apologetic anymore. She was hostile. Whenever I came home, there was this quiet tension in the air, like we were two strangers, except I knew every secret she'd been hiding. I'd catch her pacing around the living room, doing her best to look busy while her mind was obviously elsewhere. And then there was Gary. She still texted him. I'd hear her phone buzzing in the middle of the night, and it took everything I had not to go into the room and confront her. But I knew better. I wasn't going to let her drag me into her drama anymore. I stayed focused on my own life. I spent more time with my friends, went out on dates with people who actually saw me, not as an afterthought, but as someone worth being around. The emotional void she left? I filled it with healthier connections. The thing about betrayal is, it teaches you a lot. About yourself, your boundaries, your strength. I'd never had to make decisions this hard before, but I was doing it. And I was doing it with my head held high. About a month into the process, I thought I had everything figured out. The house was mine for now. She had moved into her parents' place. The paperwork was progressing. I had no illusions about the outcome. I had already mentally checked out of our marriage, and I was looking forward to the day I'd finally be free of her. But then, something unexpected happened. It was a Friday evening, and I was sorting through some old paperwork that had been piled up in a drawer for years. In one of the folders, I found a letter from her to her ex-boyfriend. I don't even know why I opened it. It wasn't like I was actively looking for more reasons to feel betrayed, but curiosity got the best of me. The letter was dated years ago. It was written while we were still together, shortly after I had proposed. It was filled with her confessions of regret and longing for him. She had written it as if it was the most natural thing in the world. I miss you. I shouldn't have let you go. I thought I could forget, but I can't. You'll always be the one who got away. Reading it felt like a gut punch. It wasn't even about the affair anymore, it was about the fact that all this time, I wasn't even the first choice. I had been her second pick. I wasn't her one. And the realization hit me harder than I expected. I wasn't just dealing with betrayal, I was dealing with being the backup plan. That's why everything had felt off from the beginning. She never saw me for who I truly was. She saw me as her safety net. I sat there for a while, just processing that letter. How had I missed it? The signs were there all along. The way she had always kept part of herself hidden. The way she always had a reason for not being fully present. And then I thought, what if I never actually knew her? That night, I went to bed with my mind racing. I couldn't shake the thought of what I had just discovered. It wasn't just her infidelity that stung, it was that I had never been her priority. Her focus had always been on what was convenient for her. It was time for one final conversation. I had been avoiding it, but I knew it was necessary. There were things left unsaid, and if I didn't address them now, I'd be carrying them around forever. I called her on a Tuesday afternoon. She answered, her voice cool, almost indifferent. "What is it?" she asked, like she was annoyed I had interrupted her afternoon. "I need to talk," I said, keeping my tone even. "About what?" "We're not married anymore, so what's the point?" she shot back. I could hear her defensive walls going up, but I wasn't going to let her control this conversation. "About the letter," I said, watching the clock on the wall tick away the seconds. I knew exactly how she'd react. "The one you wrote to your ex. The one where you say you'll always love him." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could almost hear her trying to come up with anything, to twist this into my fault. "You went through my stuff?" she said, her voice cracking just a little, the defensive front starting to slip. "I didn't have to. You left it for me to find," I said, feeling the old rage bubbling up. "You think I was your second choice? That I was just your backup? That I was the safe option?" Her tone softened. "It wasn't like that. It was just a moment of weakness. I didn't mean it. You have to understand, I didn't want to hurt you." "Didn't want to hurt me?" I almost laughed, but there was nothing funny about this. "You've been hurting me for years, with your lies, your gaslighting, your affairs. And I just let you. I let you manipulate me into thinking it was my fault, that it was me who wasn't enough. Well, newsflash, I'm enough. I always was. It's you who's the problem." I could tell I was getting under her skin. She tried to deflect, but her excuses were weak, like she was running out of material. "I was confused," she said, her voice now almost pleading. "I didn't know what I wanted. I messed up. Can't you forgive me?" I took a deep breath. I had been preparing for this moment. The apology. The attempt to make me feel guilty. But I wasn't buying it anymore. "No," I said firmly. "I can't. Not this time. I spent so long trying to fix something that wasn't broken. It wasn't me who needed fixing, it was you." Her silence was deafening. I could feel the tension in the air, the unspoken weight of everything that had been left unsaid. "I'm done," I added, my voice steady but full of finality. "And I think deep down, you know I'm right. You know this was never going to work." After a long pause, she finally spoke, but her voice was barely a whisper. "Goodbye, then," she said, and hung up. I sat there for a few moments, staring at the phone in my hand. There was no relief, no immediate sense of closure. It was just, done. It felt final. And that was something I hadn't been able to feel for a long time. The days after the final conversation were quiet. Almost too quiet. I had cut her out of my life for good, and while it felt like a relief, there was this lingering feeling I couldn't quite shake. The pain, the betrayal, the wasted years I'd spent trying to make something work that was never meant to work, it all caught up with me. But I had to push through it. I spent more time with my friends. I started picking up hobbies I had put off for years. I even went on a few dates, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again. It wasn't perfect. I wasn't healed overnight. But I had control over my life again. I was reclaiming who I was. There were nights when I'd think back to all the things she'd said. The lies. The manipulations. I thought about how she'd convince me to feel like I was the problem when it was always her. And it made me mad all over again. But then I reminded myself that I wasn't that guy anymore, the guy who let someone walk all over him because he was too afraid of losing them. It's funny, though, losing her wasn't nearly as hard as I thought it would be. In fact, it almost felt like I had gained something. A new sense of freedom. A new sense of self-worth. And, looking back now, I realized that it wasn't just about the affair. It wasn't about the cheating, the lies, or the betrayal. It was about how I allowed myself to get to that point. How I gave her too much power over my happiness. How I let myself believe that someone else's actions defined my worth. So, what did I learn? Trust yourself, you know when something's wrong. Don't ignore the red flags or talk yourself out of your gut feeling. Trust your instincts. Don't let anyone make you feel small, you deserve better than to be someone's backup plan. Don't settle for less than what you deserve, even if it means facing hard truths. Healing takes time, don't expect to be fine immediately. There's no timeline for recovery. Some days are better than others, and that's okay. Forgiveness isn't for the other person. I've learned that forgiveness is more about freeing yourself than excusing their behavior. You don't have to forget, but you do have to let go. Life after betrayal is possible. It's hard to believe in it when you're in the middle of the storm, but there's a whole world out there waiting for you. You just have to choose to step back into it. To anyone reading this, going through something similar, my advice is this: it might feel like you'll never get over it. Like the weight of it all will drown you. But you will. You'll find a new version of yourself, one that's stronger, more aware of your worth, and more capable of love, without the fear of being betrayed again. And who knows? Maybe the best is yet to come.